I won't spend a lot of time on how I feel about it other than to say Trudeau is a weak leader who leads a weakened economy with a weakened dollar, a weakened border. And President Trump has a strong mandate, and he spent his life as a highly successful businessman in the most cutthroat economic environment in the world, New York City.
In construction. Yeah, and in Chicago, right?
This is a former businessman who can spot weakness a mile away and act on it. So that, to me, it's just humiliating for all Canadians to witness something like that because this is our country. But what am I going to do about it? Well, look, first and foremost, we need to show up with strength. We have an American president who has always put America first. He's very blunt about it. I'll put Canada first. The good news is that there's immense overlap in the two countries' respective interests and values. We're both liberal democracies. We both value freedom. We both share a geography. We have our enemies and our risks and our threats are the same. So there's no reason why we can't both win. And if you look at the history of President Trump, he negotiates very aggressively and he likes to win. But in the end, he doesn't appear to have a problem if his counterparty also wins. So I think that we can get a great deal that will make both countries safer, richer, and stronger. And that's the goal that I'll be coming into these negotiations with.
Okay, so what would a great deal look like as far as you're concerned with the Americans on the energy side? Now, one of the things that Trump pointed to was Canada's trade surplus with the U.S.,
yes.
$100 billion. And that was his estimate.
Yeah.
Now,
it depends how you measure it. Other estimates have it around 40 billion, but he's right. There is a Canadian trade surplus with the States. And look, from a mercantilist point of view, you can say that America has been ripped off by China and Mexico, and you can see examples of a factory closing in Ohio or Pennsylvania to open in Mexico or in China, but that's not the nature of the Canadian trade surplus. It's not because the Canadian economy has been taking American jobs, far from it. The nature of our trade surplus with America is that, yes, it is a ripoff. Canada is ripping itself off. And let me explain. Our entire trade surplus and more is due to oil and gas because we export about $120 billion of oil and gas to the United States at enormous discounts to market price because we have been so stupid and our bureaucrats have been so obstructive and woke activists have been so fanatical that we have not been able to develop the infrastructure to refine and transport our own energy to world markets. There's a price called Western Canada Select. It's significantly lower than WTI. We send it, up until recently, at least 99% of our oil exports to America. They then get to upgrade it and resell it at enormous profits with their welders and pipe fitters, engineers making the six-figure salaries that go along with that. We give all of our natural gas exports to the United States because we don't have an operating liquefaction terminal to send it away ourselves. So they get our natural gas at massive discounts, and then they can decide if they want to liquefy it and ship it off to world markets at literally $5. So that is the trade surplus he's talking about. Now, if he were to stop that today, what it would mean is that American workers at refineries and in other value-added places would lose their jobs, and Americans would pay higher energy prices. So that would not be good for America. In the long run, I'll be very blunt. I intend to approve refineries and LNG plants and hopefully pipelines so that I can bring that production back to Canada and make us more energy independent. But in the short run, if President Trump wants to make America richer, the last thing he should want to do is block the underpriced Canadian energy from going into his marketplace. In fact, what I would encourage him to do is to approve the Keystone Pipeline so that we can create jobs for American workers who will build and install it, but also create much more wealth for Alberta and Saskatchewan and having their product reach tidewater in the U.S. Gulf Coast and get world prices. So there's enormous opportunities for both of us to get vastly richer if we actually deepen our trade relationship rather than blocking it.
Right. Well, it seems highly probable to me that that would be the direction that the Trump administration would turn in if they were negotiating with people who were playing a straight game and were actually aiming for something like economic prosperity instead of. Also, man, given that we refused that we ended up maintaining our low-cost contracts with the United States and selling them all our resources at a discount.
But because we have blocked LNG plants and pipelines and other energy infrastructure, and because we're giving, therefore, our gas to America at like a 70 or 80% discount to European and Asian prices, and our oil at a discount of 20 or 30%, we're effectively throwing money out a window. What do you do when someone throws money out a window?
You
stand next to the window.
Yeah, right.
Like, I mean, so that is the true story of if it's the pathetic story of our trade surplus, is that we're actually handing over our resources stupidly. It's not the Americans' fault. It's our fault. We're stupid. And we're going to stop being stupid when I'm prime minister. We're going to build this infrastructure ourselves. But in the meantime, it would be bad for American workers and consumers for the president to tariff our oil and gas. Look, we have an integrated economy. I think an automobile crosses the border something like 8 or 9 times between Ontario and the manufacturing states of the U.S. before it becomes a finished product. Why interrupt those supply chains? Also, why not allow Americans just to have access to buying our minerals? Or better yet, why don't we improve them here in Canada before we sell them to the United States to break dependence on hostile foreign powers? And by the way, what I would say to President Trump is that the gains that Canada gets from increased access to the United States, I would spend largely on our continental defense. We could have a bigger and more powerful military with a bigger and more powerful economy. And so our interests overlap overwhelmingly. And that's the case that I would make to the incoming president, who has proven that he is good at and likes to make deals.